everyone, it's Silvia from Feel Like Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at the Wheel of the Year reading versus the 6 months ahead readings. So the reason why I thought of doing this video is because we are at the end of January, and these are the last days in which, if you join my membership program, you can have a complimentary Wheel of the Year in private mode video sent to you. The reason why these are the last days is not because I don't want to offer these kind of readings any longer. It's because I actually believe that once you reach the mid-February, end of February mark in the economy of the year, the energies are pretty much already set. Sometimes in the Wheel of the Year reading, not every time, but sometimes we can also have the opportunity to, let's say, set the course in a different way. So let's say, for example, we have a very dynamic kind of year, which is probably going to be true for a lot of us, because let's not forget that this year, as a collective card of the year, we're looking at the Strength card. So obviously it's going to be a year in which collectively we're going to have to reconfirm and dissipate all of the doubts that we may have developed in the last couple of years when it comes to, you know, our intellect, our mind, our heart, but also our bodies. Whenever we found ourselves in a situation in which we were doubting our capabilities, the Strength here is going to bring about a couple of challenges as well, let's be honest, but those challenges will be powerful, they will be very intense, but they will also be very useful, because we will need them in order to confirm and get that sense of self-confidence back that we probably have lost. So as I was saying, I still offer private readings to my members, but starting from February onwards, I'm going to offer the 6 months ahead readings as opposed to the Wheel of the Year readings. Because, as I said, if we see that it's going to be a kind of a dynamic, year full of movement, full of fire, with some setbacks in the second part of the year, and we do the Wheel of the Year reading in January or maximum February, we can actually do something in order to change, not necessarily the energies, because the energies are going to be still there, but we can change ourselves, we can prepare ourselves, we can actually set our mind into a safe space. And once we do that, you know, as a consequence of that, we can actually be more prepared to face whatever event is going to come our way. And I believe that we can do that when we have, let's say, 8 to 10 months ahead. But if we have less than that, if we start having 6 to 8 months ahead, we don't necessarily have the possibility to get prepared. Now, we could probably do Wheel of the Year readings well into March, but I don't want to risk it. So what I prefer to do once we get to the month of March is the 6 months ahead readings. If you're not familiar with that, I'm actually going to today in this video going to show you the differences between the Wheel of the Year readings, the 6 months ahead readings. We're going to have a look at pros and cons for each reading, and I'm also going to recommend a few decks that you can read, that you can use to read each one of these two spreads. So let's start with the Wheel of the Year. So the Wheel of the Year, I generally speaking use these decks. Why? Because the Wheel of the Year reading is let's say you pull a card out of a tarot deck for each and every month. Okay, and that card, those cards will represent the prevailing energy of the month in question. So if we got the Hangman card starting the year in January, we will know that January will serve us to take a different perspective in life. You know, everything that we've done so far until January was done for a purpose. Perhaps in January with the Hangman or the Hanged One, we are invited to change a filter, to change lens, to look at things in a different way, from a different perspective. So once we move on to the February, March, April, and so on, we'll see that the energies can change. They are not necessarily always related one to another. Sometimes we see evolution, sometimes we don't. So one thing that I like to do is, well, first of all, I recommend the Light Seers or any other pocket deck, because when we think about it, the Wheel of the Year is actually a rather large spread. I'm just going to show you quickly what I mean with that. I do believe strongly in visualization every time I explain something, so it's something that I recommend doing if you're a reader as well. Always try to visualize things. If you're a teacher, always try and, you know, paint a picture so that your students will be able to understand what you're talking about. And, you know, tarot is it's a fantastic visual instrument because of the images, of course, but because obviously because of the essences behind the images, what do they represent, the symbols, but also the keywords, the titles, etc. So I'm not going to shuffle for minutes like I always do, but just to give you an example, this is what I do for my members when I do the Wheel of the Year reading. So I pull 12 cards out of a deck. Generally speaking, I would use, now that I am still at home, I would use one of the many decks that I've got, depending on the vibe that I feel coming from this person. So we got 5, 6, but I do recommend a pocket deck because of, you know, space reasons, and obviously next week I will be flying to Europe, so I will be taking the Light Seers Tarot with me in order to do some Wheel of the Year readings, because it's just easier. So how many we got? 3, 6, 9, 3 more, so 10, 11 and 12. So these are just randomly picked. I'm not necessarily focusing right now. It's literally just to give you an idea of what it would look like. Sometimes I read the energy of the card at the bottom of the deck. In this case, you probably can't see because it's tiny, but it's the Page of Wands. Here it is. So the Page of Wands tells me that it's going to be a year full of life, full of electricity. Obviously, Wands is the suit of the alchemical element of fire. So then we start, you need to visualize the face of a watch. So the number 1 is, 1 o'clock is your January. And then you've got your other months following suit. So obviously April, May, June. And once we get to this point, we turn the card upside down in such a way that it will still face the center. I don't shuffle reversals. I do, however, read reversals depending on the position on the spread. But when it comes to the energies of the Wheel of the Year, I tend to see the cards upright. So let me just fit them in the frame. So it's okay, it might not look like the perfect circle, but you get the idea. So basically these are the 12 months of the Wheel of the Year reading. So we start then, we turn them upright. All of them, I generally give the possibility to the person to take a screenshot at this point, because this is the last time that we're actually going to see the Wheel of the Year in its entirety. Because for space reason, what I do after this, I actually analyze and read month by month, but in groups of 3. So I give the person, the possibility to take a screenshot right now, and then, starting from December, I put November, October, and so on, one card on top of the other, taking care of always putting them upright. And now when I've got only 3 cards left, we know that we got the first 3 months of the year. So what I'm going to do now, for your benefit and mine, I'm actually going to zoom in, because these are rather small cards. So here we go. Now one thing that I like to do is I also use an oracle deck, and every 3 months, so every quarter that I've got, before I start reading them, I actually pull a card from an oracle deck. Generally speaking, I try and pair up oracle decks that look nice together, or they complement each other for whatever reason. So in this case, I've chosen the Trees Ascension deck. And since it's just a sample reading, I am simply going to pull just about any card, it doesn't matter. but just let's see, shadow. Okay, so in this case, this is going to give me the key with which I'm actually going to read these 3 cards, and there's going to be a different oracle card for each quarter. So shadow may mean, in this case, may suggest to me that these cards indeed need to be read under the shadow, so under the aspect of something that is perhaps reversed. If we're talking about an energy, there could be a blockage. So what I'm seeing here is there's a Chariot card in January, but seeing the Chariot card through the shadow, we can imagine it to be reversed. So what does that mean? It means that whatever victory that, whatever project you embarked upon, and it was going in the right direction, there might be some kind of blockage that is actually preventing you from achieving that. There is a blockage when it comes to the movement that you want to find yourself into. So that momentum that you wanted to carry on, it might actually for the time being be in a stall. So this is telling us that all of the energies are let's say at an impasse, so they find themselves not being able to go forward. So this for the month of January, because we're looking at this sample in specific. Obviously I wasn't focusing on anyone in specific. This is not a reading for an actual person, so the cards are literally random, but if it were an actual reading, I would also notice the presence of 2. You see 2 major arcanas out of 3 cards, which is rather important because the odds are really low. And I'm also noticing that when it comes to the other card, we have a Knight. So we have a court card, which could be read in many different ways. Sometimes as an archetype, sometimes as the description of the person itself, sometimes as events that are related to the energy of the Knight of Swords. So that kind of warrior, that kind of conquest, that kind of fight for a cause, for a just cause, in the suit of the mind, of course, with the element of air. So we're looking at, as you can see, a number of different things. So we've seen that, for example, this card is suggesting me, is telling me to read the Chariot card in reversed, because if we look at the shadow, the Chariot, which is generally a card of victory, a card of, getting ready and doing something, the action, the movement, is kind of blocked. When we look at the Knight of Swords, there could be this kind of, the shadow could tell me that there might be, in this case, not exactly a just cause. So the warrior, the Knight of Swords, is the person that understands what to do, not because they receive an order, but because they believe that they need to do something. So it's the crusader, it's the one that actually sets off on an adventure, but also on a fight or on a war, because they believe that their help is needed, and they have absolutely no personal gain in doing what they're doing. However, the shadow card tells me that in this case there might be a kind of a secret agenda behind the intentions of this Knight of Swords. And the Judgment card, of course, is, the consequences related to our place in society, as opposed to the Justice card, which is the consequences of our individuality. So when we look at the shadow aspect of Judgment, there's also a bit of a slowing down of something that is actually connected to a transformation that needs to come, but is not, because it's blocked by something. As you can see, this oracle card is actually influencing the way I read these energies. And we keep on doing that for all of the other quarters. So then we will move on to March, April, May, June, July, August, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to this kind of, let's put the cards back here just to keep on talking. But when it comes to these kind of readings, there's pros and cons to the Wheel of the Year. So I believe that the Wheel of the Year has pros in the sense that it gives you a bird's eye view of the whole year. You also can use and calculate the personal card of the year, and you can do a reading of that, and you can use that as a key to read all of the other cards, but you can also associate that to the collective card of the year. So you can do a personalized reading that looks at the personal card of the year in combination with the collective card of the year, and looking at those 2 cards and reflecting on all of the other 12 cards and the oracle cards together. So it's a very comprehensive but also very complex kind of reading. It does give you a good sense of the energies at play, as I said, very much so, in the sense that when we look at the energy of a month in specific, we don't necessarily look at the so below, we are pretty much looking at the as above. And also it gives you enough time, as I was saying before, to prep yourself, to prepare yourself, to receive a warning or an advice or a suggestion, for the second part of the year, because you do have enough time. Now, these are what I believe the pros of reading the Wheel of the Year. And earlier I was talking about the decks, so the Light Seers, for example, because of the size, obviously, but also because it is a very versatile deck, and it also shows you a lot of those, what I call the so below, the everyday fact of life. And the same goes for the Savage Soul Tarot, which is this one by Julie Whitelish, which I really, really like to use in these kind of readings, because each and every card has that kind of so below energy with very descriptive, very visual kind of images, almost as if they were, still frames from a movie, for example. And it's a still frame from an event in the movie that is actually very, very symbolic of the movie itself. And as such, the movie is our life, and it shows us these moments. Another deck that I really like to use for a more masculine kind of energy is the Inkwitch Tarot deck by Eric Mail, which is absolutely fantastic when you really want that kind of masculine energy, as opposed to other decks that I have, which are probably focusing more on feminine energy. Now, please understand that when I say masculine as opposed to energy, I'm actually referring to creative power and intuitive power. I don't read gender as energies. And then I also like to use the Star Seeker Tarot by Nikki Ferrada, because it's a really beautiful deck, and also because it really gives me the possibility to pair it up with a lot of oracles that I've got for a nice kind of complete reading. Obviously, you can use any other deck you feel that will yield the most results when it comes to the Wheel of the Year. But now let's have a look at the not negative, because I don't want to use the word negative, but the slightly less positive aspects of the Wheel of the Year reading. So when it comes to timeline and energies, the common consent is that 12 months ahead or 12 months away is actually too far into the future. And this is actually represented also in the timeline, so that we can see through the court cards. So for example, when we look at the page, we know that we're talking about days, an event that is actually going to be resolved within days. When we look at the knights, we know that we're talking about weeks. When we look at the queens, we're talking about quarters or months. And when we look at the king, we think that it's actually as far ahead as 6 months, but we also know that there needs to be a check. What does that mean? So it means that whenever I'm asking to the cards to tell me a guide, to give me a guideline in regards to timing, and I pull the king out of the court cards, it means that it's not well defined yet. So it's so far ahead into the future, so over 6 months, that is not well defined, and I will need to do a bit of a checkup within 3, 4, 5 months. So as you can see, the cards themselves think that 6 months or 6 to 8 months is, well, far ahead enough. Therefore, 12 months ahead, on the one hand, at the pro of being able to change, or prepare yourself to what the cards will tell you, about the month of November or October, November, December. On the other hand, we don't necessarily know whether those energies are already fixed. So one good thing is that when you, let's say, have done the Wheel of the Year reading, you can actually do around about May, I would say mid to end of May, and the whole month of June, we can do the 6 months ahead reading. What is the 6 months ahead reading? Let's have a look. So in order to show you the 6 months ahead reading, I'm going to use the Inkwitch Tarot by Eric Mail, which is really, really beautiful. I absolutely love this deck. And by the way, newsflash, Eric is preparing another deck, and I think it's going to be called the Endless Tarot, because you probably know that he's been releasing in the past, I think it was a year and a half ago, the Endless Oracle. And so this new tarot deck is going to be pretty much very similar to the Endless Oracle, in the sense that, of course, it's going to be a tarot deck, but it's going to have that same kind of color palette, for what I understand. and that same kind of energy. So it's gonna pair up really well. You know, if you used to pair up tarot decks and oracle decks, you may want to look into both of them. So I'm just going to show you the spread of the 6 months ahead, but first I'm going to shuffle. As I said, this is going to be for, you know, the sole purpose of showing you. So these are not actual readings, but these are what my readings to my members look like. And as I said, these are personal, private videos that I will film and send to you. So if you want to join, you have until the end of January, probably until the first week of February, to join my membership in order to receive a free Wheel of the Year reading. And then after that, if you join in February, you're going to receive the 6 months ahead free reading. So now that we more or less shuffled, we do the same kind of thing. So I'm actually pulling more cards. In this case, I'm pulling 15 cards. So for now, what I can do, I can actually zoom out a little bit so I can show you. Okay, obviously being a 15 card spread, I kind of, you know, invite you also to choose smaller decks if you can, any kind of pocket decks. It's very good because I think both Lo Scarabeo and Rockpool recently as well, and Hay House have started releasing pocket decks, probably because, you know, the tarot community has been asking for them. So we've got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and the last one, 15. As I said, I didn't really pay that much attention when choosing the cards. We're just literally going to have a look at what the 6 months ahead looks like as a spread. So starting from the bottom, so this is the first card that I picked. This is going to be number 1. Let me just see if I can fit everything. Number 2 and number 3. So then I'm just going to lay down all the cards. So number 4, 5 and 6. Hopefully it all fits, yeah, more or less. And then number 7, 8. I had to zoom out, I forgot that I was actually zoomed in. So here we go, perhaps I can move these. Can you still see them in the frame? More or less, yes. We can do this. Here we go. So we said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And the last 3 cards, 13, 14, and 15. May have to push them up a little bit, but it's okay. So this is what it's going to look like. And so we start from these cards, okay? So in this case, this is telling me what the present situation is or the issue at hand, but most likely the present situation or the energies at the present moment. This is referring back to the past situation. This is the possible future. Possible, I say possible, not in the sense that we don't know what the energies will be, but it's a possible future, let's say, if we do not change any kind of course, you know, after the reading, which most of the time will actually happen. So when we look at these 3 cards, we actually, you know, flip them like this. I will read them the same way I read cards. So obviously I will notice in this case there's 2 major arcanas, which is, you know, as we said, low odds. And we've got an ace, which is obviously telling me that there's a beginning. It's referred to the Ace of Pentacles, so it's the element of earth. So we're looking at a new project, a new career project, or something related to finances. But it can also something related to, you know, bonding, our connection back to nature, or also something that will see us as students learning something new. The important thing is that it really does lay the foundation. It's the laying down of the bricks of the foundation for something new to, you know, be built, a new structure. So the Lovers, obviously, this is the position of the past, of the present situation, and it's giving me that sense of duality. When it's the major arcana of the Lovers, I don't necessarily read it as a relationship. It can be referred to a relationship, but generally speaking, we're looking at as above kind of energy. So duality, that kind of choice. You may find yourself in a situation in which you have to make a choice and you're just evaluating all of your options, and it may also be a choice related to a person, so of course it can refer back to a relationship. It is, however, because of the presence of the Ace of Pentacles, which is the suit of the the earth, so not referring back to the water or the emotions and the feelings. So this is telling me that we're probably looking at the decision into this environment, so perhaps at work. And the Strength card, which is the possible outcome, is telling me that there will be that kind of going back and forth, that kind of necessity to reconfirm some of the doubts that will present themselves throughout your evolution in the cards. But we'll look at this card more in details because we have these cards that actually support these ones. So when we look at the past, for example, because this card we want to, let's say, almost as if we were pulling some clarifiers on this card to understand a little bit better what this card is about, we're looking at the position 4, 5, and 6. So these are all the past events that trigger the present situation. So we're going to have a look at what we've got. Again, as I was explaining, these cards are being pulled rather randomly, so I don't actually expect to have some fantastic breakthrough, because it's always challenging some kind of energy or another. But this is merely for the purpose of explaining what my 6 months ahead reading looks like. So we're looking at, again, we have another major arcana, so 3 major arcanas already in 6 cards, at 50%. Out of 78 cards. So it's important to notice these things because it does tell the level of energy we need to focus on. And it's a really beautiful card, but it's also a card of completion. So it's a beautiful card because it's the card of attainment, it's the card of achievement, it's the card that tells us that we have completed a cycle. But yes, we have completed a cycle. So it tells us that we have to start something new, and we are choosing and evaluating because we have completed a cycle. It was a good achievement, a good completion. Nothing wrong about that. As a matter of fact, the World card is also bringing about some kind of celebration with itself because it's the celebration of life. However, it is the ending of a project. And what happens is that we also set out to new lands because we felt, so the 3 of Wands is the card that tells us that we have looked at our world. You remember the 2 of Wands, generally speaking, depicts someone looking at the world, and the world is so small that it actually fits in the palm of their hand. So we have been looking at this world and we've decided it's actually too small for us. We want to break free of that. We want to set sail to a different destination. We don't necessarily know, but this is the energy of fire. So it tells us that we need to go, go, go. And we haven't asked the energy of the air for now to tell us where to go or to strategize a little bit. But for now, we're just going. What happens when we don't strategize is that we find ourselves in a situation of a little bit of a lull. So this is a moment in which we still realize that even though we set sail, we actually find ourselves with all of the choices in front of us and nothing is rather appealing to us. That's why we're evaluating, these 2 cards together. Yeah, we started something new, but we're still in the moment in which we need to decide because we're not necessarily captivated, let's say, that by what we see in front of us. So this is a way in which I'm actually trying to understand these 2 cards, because these 2 cards by themselves don't tell me that much. And these events, let's not forget, we're talking about 6 months ahead. So all of these events start from now up to 6 months into the future. So these are the events of the past that brought the now into the existence. And now we're going to have a look at, let's say, clarifiers for this card. So the possible outcome in the card 7, 8, and 9. Now I'm just gonna flip them like that and Let's see if they fit, kind of, yeah. So amazingly, we have another 2 major arcanas. This is what it was already, you know, shuffled, that deck. It wasn't in order. But in any case, okay, so we've got so many major arcanas. We're looking at very strong leading cosmic energies, influences from something that it's not necessarily under our control. Some of the small things will be, of course, but not everything. What we see is, as I said before, these are the cards that tell us what the future, the possible future can be like as a direct consequence of the present situation. So these cards are definitely a consequence, or let's say they bring about or are connected to the cards that we've seen as the first 3 cards. But these ones show us what the future could be like, you know, as a direct consequence of the present situation if we don't do anything about it. So we'll see that we have the Sun and the Hermit as major arcanas. The Sun is obviously the celebration, the joy, but it's also the ephemeral joy. It's the kind of joy that probably doesn't really last very long because it's not based on solid foundation. It's the kind of event that is absolutely wonderful to live through, you know, that spark of energy, that you know, the warmth, that the light of the sun that is actually illuminating everything, and is also contributing to life, because obviously the sun is contributing to growth, life and nourishment. So it's a fantastic card, and the invitation here is definitely to enjoy and to bask in this joy of the moment. But let's not forget that it is the joy of the moment. So if we're looking at the clarifier and the meaning of the Sun card as a clarifier to the Strength card, we're looking at something that for the time being can bring back a little bit of solace in a year which is going to be a bit, not trouble necessarily, but it's going to be, let's say it's going to be a lot of movement. So let's enjoy the sun and the happiness that it brings with it. But the Seven of Swords shows us that for the time being, we're celebrating, but not for long. It's almost as if we were telling us that we need to be aware of our surroundings, because there might be something that is going on behind the background that we're not necessarily aware of. And I read the Seven of Swords in several different ways. Now, there are a couple of possibilities. Whether you are the person that is, let's say, the active participant on the Seven of Swords, and in this case it could be that you find yourself under certain circumstances that force you to do something not necessarily moral, not necessarily, let's say, straight, not necessarily correct, not necessarily something you'll be proud of. However, I always say, do not judge, always be kind, because you don't know what the circumstances are. Why is someone behaving like in the Seven of Swords situation, in which there is a little bit of a treachery of treason, there is a bit of a, you know, stealing going on here, thievery going on here. We don't know what's going on in the background, and I always ask kindly to exercise a little bit of caution before judgment, because, as I said, we never know. And in many cases, you know, it's the person that, perhaps, just to give you an idea, is the person that has to steal food because they cannot afford it. Okay, so either there's 2 possibilities. Either you are the active participant in this case, so you're the one who's stealing the bread, let's say, just to stick to the metaphor, or you're the one that has the bread, but is the bread's being stolen by someone else. So you're the victim in this case. So I always refer back to the fact that the Suit of Swords is the suit of the mind, the suit of air, and refers back to thoughts. And this could lead to the Eight of Swords, because to me the Suit of Swords is one of the most, actually the most sequential suit amongst all of the minor arcanas. There's always a sequence that can be seen in the facts that represent one card and lead to the next card. So this is coming from the Six of Swords. We have been crossing choppy waters in a trip that we had to embark upon but not necessarily wanted to. We obviously wanted to find a better place for ourselves. You know, it's the typical feeling of the migrant, you know, the person that is being pushed away from a place or is being pulled towards another place. When something goes wrong, when something goes wrong in the Six of Swords, we can find ourselves in a Seven of Swords situation. So either we lose something because it's taken away from us, or we have to take something away from others because we need to, we have to. Now, the Hermit seems to just suggest that after this event, we kind of retrace our step back. We kind of close up, you know, we want to feel safe, and the only place where we feel safe is within ourselves. So we close off our contacts with the external world. We understand that at this moment our presence is just not gonna bring any kind of movement or any kind of outcome in the outside world, and so we just decide to become that hermit, go back into meditation and learning, perhaps in many cases as well, to just try and understand and make sense of whatever it is that has been happening. So this Strength card, you know, the way in which I'm reading these cards as clarifiers to the Strength card, it literally just brings me back to the very specific image of this deck for the Strength card. So this is a pacifist, obviously, it's a person that is literally putting a flower inside the gun, the machine gun, I'm guessing, of a soldier in front of them. And this requires a lot of strength, but not just strength, it's also the strength of mind, is the courage that you need, and also the self-confidence that, you know, brings you the physical courage as well to go in front of something that scares you and confront it. So in order to read these cards as clarifiers to the Strength card, we need to see these as that additional kind of energy that you need to attain from the small achievement that brings you joy, but also realize that the situation you're in right now, it is not necessarily a clear situation, is not a positive situation necessarily, and it also becomes a little bit of a reason for you to retrace your steps back and kind of reflect and meditate on what has been happening. So that kind of strength that you need to achieve it because of what is going on around here, and because you also need to face and confront something rather strong and possibly stronger than you. Now, this is obviously a possible outcome. Now, we're going to have a look at these 6 cards here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring these up a little bit because otherwise they won't be fitting in the frame. And let's see, that's a bit better. So we have cards 10, 11 and 12 here, and these are advices, challenges and allies. So advice or advices, challenges and allies. Okay, so the 10 of Wands, so we see it's 3 wands, so something else that I'm noticing, obviously there is a neat prevalence of, you know, well, major arcanas, obviously we've seen that, but also wands. We've got 4 wands out of, you know, 12 cards, which is obviously a third, so it's a lot, considering that practically 90% of the rest of the cards are major arcanas. So what we've got the 10 of Wands for the position of advice. So advice with the 10 of Wands means that you should stop taking on burdens that are not yours. Simply because you do have a burden already, and we have seen that with the Seven of Swords. We're also seeing that with the Strength card. You do have a burden on your shoulders already. That's enough. You are kind of heart, you are a good person, but you're also an impulsive, if I may say, kind of person. So you, in the good way, so you see someone suffering, you see someone weighted down by something, and you want to help and you want to take upon your shoulders whatever it is that they have. However, this card as an advice, let's not forget, is telling you don't do that, at least not for the time being, because guess what? You don't have enough strength to actually carry everything that is already on your shoulders. So that's definitely the advice. In this case, we've got the challenges ahead. Now, the 5 of Wands is the energy of a bit of a competition. It's the disruption that comes after the 4 of Wands. And since I do read numerologically and sequentially, I see that perhaps the 4 of Wands is the kind of guests that get a little bit too tipsy when it comes to the party, enjoying the party. And when they become a little bit too tipsy, they may actually start kind of having a bit of a fight, you know, with the others. So it's the kind of disruptive energy that we find in all of the 5s throughout all the suits. And it's but it's not the Five of Swords, so it's the Five of Wands. So it's the disruption in the suit of fire. There's a lot of animosity, but it looks almost as if you were a barking dog that doesn't necessarily bite in the end. But there is this kind of disruptive energy. And then we see another Wands, and it's the Queen of Wands, which is on the position of the allies. So this is definitely to be read as an archetype of a person that is close to you, an ally indeed. And the Queen of Wands in this position as an archetype is the performer. So you need to look at someone who's always aware of what the others think about them and acts as a consequence, but also has that kind of, you know, they actually like to be under the center of attention, under the spotlight. They like to be also, they're also very generous, because generosity, you know, again, they do it also for the flashlight, but also because they're kind of heart. And so there's no hidden agenda, but they do like to be, you know, to be seen. It's a person that likes to be seen, that likes to be observed, and also the kind of person that is an artist, for example. We see in the Page of Wands the miracle of creation and the energy and the spark of electricity, but this is the Queen. So there has been that kind of evolution in which if the Page of Wands is using a magical wand and try for the first time to do their first spells, the Queen of Wands is definitely the person that has mastered that magical energy. So the ally is this person. Look for this person in your life, because it will be an ally. And then the last three cards are about the let's say the 13, 14, 15, the future that can be. So this is more or less looking again into the possible outcome, but because we had the possibility to dig a little bit deeper into this strength card, we have the possibility to change our mind on what can be. So we're going to obviously look at these cards. And we see for now we have another couple of pentacles, and we have another major arcana, so the Hangman. So let me just count them, because my goodness, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So six major arcanas in a reading of 15 cards. There's a lot of really cosmic energies here, but it's also because I wasn't reading for anyone in particular. So in this case, obviously there wasn't enough data, there wasn't enough knowledge to show me, you know, the minor arcanas related to the everyday life. In any case, this is a sample reading. So what are we looking at? This is the, let's say, the future that can be once you actually take stock of what you've got in here. So we see the Two of Pentacles, the Hangman, and the Knight of Pentacles. I like that we're still focusing on that Ace of Pentacles, because these are always related. So we're still looking at that possibility, that new project that you have in your hands, and that is very important for, you know, for you, because it really shows up into these cards. There is a kind of whimsical juggling at first, in the sense that we perhaps have decided to take a different direction after we noticed these cards. We prepared ourselves for something else. That is confirmed by the Hangman. So the Hangman or the Hangman is the person who is actually changing perspective. They are taking on a different set of eyes. They are looking at things through a different lens. That helps them recognize things or look at things in a different way. So this will give you different resources as well. If that Ace of Pentacles was not necessarily going in the right direction, that project in the right direction, because of the Seven of Swords here, and then was bringing to you the moment in which you had to retrace your steps back, you know, to gain back that strength. In here, if you change perspective, it's telling you that you're actually going to, you know, eventually succeed. There is a Knight of Pentacles. Now, mind you, the Knight of Pentacles is the archetype of the soldier as opposed to the warrior. So the Knight of Pentacles for me is the person that has a very strong idea of what needs to be done, of what the orders are. So let's say they act because they're in that course of action. So they act because they're told to act. They're the good soldier. They really obey the orders. They're also the defender, so they defend people. But as opposed to the Knight of Warriors or the Knight of Swords, which is the warrior is the crusader. So the warrior actually acts or goes to war for a belief. The Knight of Pentacles goes to war to defend someone, to save someone, to defend someone, as a signpost or something like that. So what this is telling us is your new perspective is telling you to actually look at what the orders are, and that's obviously metaphorical. So you need to look at what the guidelines, so orders is another word for guidelines. So look at what the guidelines are and then stick to them, because that's a way in which you see the movement and the action that is energies carried by the Knight. So this is the, let's say, the 6 months ahead reading that I offer to my members. And obviously, as the Wheel of the Year, we're just going to have a look at pros and cons. So for pros, we see that it's definitely more specific, obviously, because the energies are more channeled. We're also looking at more time reliable events, in the sense that the timeline is restricted to 6 months ahead, which is pretty much, well, let's say not setting stones, but you know, it is more tangible. It also gives you the possibility to pull clarifiers. So in this case, I will pull probably another couple of clarifiers on the Seven of Swords if I felt the need to do that. And it looks at both the as above and the so below energy, because of course both energies are necessary to understand what the events are and what they will be. Of course, there's slightly less positive things to this spread as well, so it is restricted to the next 6 months. It doesn't give you a bird's eye view of the whole year. It does need a checkup after 6 months, as well as the Wheel of the Year. Why? Because obviously we are restricted to 6 months, but also because these kind of things need to be checked out, because we see that this is a possible outcome in the future, but not necessarily. It doesn't have a divinatory meaning. Let's be clear about this. This is to have a look at the energies at play. So it needs to have a checkup after a few months. And in this case, we don't involve and we don't read neither the personal card of the year nor the collective card of the year. And I also do not necessarily pull any oracle card, because I already have some clarifiers here. I already know through which set of eyes I need to look at the cards. Now, if you're interested, send me an email. If you're interested in becoming one of my members, there's the join. If you go in your desktop, unfortunately, you will not see the join button in your mobile, and I suspect also not in your iPad. You have to go to a desktop, unfortunately, to join. So once you click on the join button, you will see that there's a drop down of all of the benefits and the perks related to all 3 tiers. The first tier is the Fairlights, and it's basically supportive. The second tier is the Sunlight, and it's got a lot of reading and involvement, and we're also looking at, for example, an intermediate to advanced course to read tarot with me. We're also looking at a series which is called Down the Rabbit Hole, which is me looking into, together with you actually, looking into very specific decks. And there's also, every now and then there's personal readings. Basically now it's every other Saturday, but when the number of members will grow, I probably will be able to do a live reading once per month. And then there's the Starlight membership, which is the top tier, which is including all that I've already said. And it's also giving you, once every 2 weeks, we're doing a very personalized, guided processing, let's say, what I call healing step by step, which is using tarot and oracle decks and meditation and journaling in order to go through the process of, grieving or processing trauma, but also simply for personal growth and enlightenment. As I said, if you have any questions at all, please send me an email at info@fairlightwellness.com. Thank you for your attention. For now, have a great day.